That's what the People's Daily had to say. As far as Mr. Snowden himself, he arrived in Moscow, and this is where the media left Mr. Snowden off. He was supposed to have been on a flight to Havana. They didn't see him. That doesn't mean that he was not somewhere in the plane. But nonetheless, the news media was on there, with the exception of media from the U.S. who didn't have visas to go to Cuba. So they were out of the situation, and the White House position is, well, they are just basically followed legal channels. And I want to remember about extradition while we're on this Trayvon Martin and legal cases. It is not a legal procedure. Basically, it is a political procedure, and it's slash diplomatic, but diplomatic means political. So thus, whatever the law is to extradite a person, a decision is made by that country is based on a political perspective. And in Hong Kong, the perspective was that Mr. Snowden did not violate any law there, and thus he was free to leave, and he left. He had what was called a immigrant visa, special visa that's granted since the U.S. had canceled his passport, and he was on the Aeroflot and on to the Soviet Union. It goes. The former Soviet Union, I should say. So that was where they have left off there. They claim it's a mystery, and of course, whatever information Mr. Snowden has or doesn't have, it is now being partialed out by him. And there's even a petition now to President Obama or the White House to pardon Mr. Snowden. Well, the unfortunate case is, however, that Mr. Snowden, that President Obama has a history of basically only pardoning turkeys. And I bet he has his ink pen ready for Mr. Snowden, not to pardon him, but as they say, to send his head to the proverbial chopping block for life. So that is where the Snowden case ended, or is at this time. It's in limbo. So some of the stories that we were following. Now, Trayvon Martin's girlfriend, be up, I believe, she's witness number 8. Let me just make sure here. That'll be on Tuesday. She'll be up there on what happened at the retreat at Twins Lake. Now, Twin Lakes. What had happened there? Those were condos, but the condos in Florida, as many other things, were all underwater. People had lost huge amounts of money. They were in foreclosure. Thus, those condos were actually being rented out to people as rental units. That's kind of a little background on that. I know I'm skipping around here. I normally don't do this, at least not as randomly. But you will hear a little bit of it there just to get the flavor of what's going on. Other events, of course, we are following this day is the condition of Nelson Mandela. So we have these items all up here and equally, as they say, on the world scene, and is also on the scene here. The presidential palace in Kabul, it's in Afghanistan, was attacked. Evidently, presidential guards there. They evidently killed the intruders in that particular incident. I was just looking to see where Mandela is. Well, he didn't make Al Jazeera today, so he's still in hospital in a critical condition. So that's a little bit of the news. We'll take a quick look as we go out here. As to what well, the BBC, let's just grab this while we're here. A little different perspective here. Of course, Snowden has not entered. The Russian Republic says has no involvement in travel plans of Mr. Snowden. Exact whereabouts are not known. The Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov insisted he had not crossed the Russian border. He was in the airport. So it suggests, according to this report, that he's still in some hotel area there. And the Reuters service reported that as the news that he was expected to depart. And the BBC report also gives the same thing from the as the People's Daily gave in their particular description. And Ecuador is also at the center of this. They are giving asylum to Julius Assange, and he's in their embassy in London. And on international law, he should be allowed to leave that embassy because that is property of the Ecuadorian government, as all embassies are, and he should be able to move along there. So nonetheless, that is the latest. He's also traveling with Sarah Harrison, a British legal researcher working for WikiLeaks. So it's kind of a interesting situation here. But my take on this is quite obvious. If you're in the Russian Republic, the Russian security forces know where you are, period, and that will leave the story there. So this has some international things to it. And this week what we'll continue to do is to cover the Tranyvon Martin case. Probably is not as much as today, some of the major testimony, and of course move along with other world events. And hopefully we don't have our technical difficulties we had last week. On Friday Java we'll sum up some of this, and also on the week that was we will sum up the Tranyvon Martin case week 1, that's before the jury. So we look forward to those, and we'll continue to do the analysis as best we can. Now, one thing to also point out here, that the judge in the case asked for case law. She's on case law. We talked yesterday about Ramaz, a Florida case continuously cited for the technical evidence. That was the audio evidence, which the audio experts, I should say, which was not heard. The audio was heard, but the experts were not heard. But today the DNA did come in there, and that is very, very important, because again, that is the direct evidence. This is Boston Red for the Tranyvon Martin murder trial, day 1, on the 25th of June 2013. And as the poet laureate of Newark, New Jersey, one L.A. Bill Graham would say, peace out. And also, today is election day in the Commonwealth. This is to fill the seat by Brother Kerry, who unfortunately called Mr. Snowden a traitor, John Kerry. He ran for president once. But this is to replace him. Ed Markey is the Democrat running, and Mr. Gomez is the Republican. He is a investment advisor, I guess you'd call him there. He has investors for clients, whatever. But nonetheless, of the latest poll we have, and there have been a number of polls here. E.J. Dion, the writer, was talking once about on Twitter about some of these polls. But the latest from Suffolk University has Ed Markey leading by 52 to 42. So thus, and Mr. Gomez's own poll has him down by 7 points. So it's a margin of error, quite large margin of error, 4.4%, almost 4.5% margin of error going on here, which is quite a bit. But nonetheless, if we took it as 5%, he's 5% ahead, or just a rough and dirty way of, it's not a statistical way of looking at it. So thus, with all these polls thrown together, an average of, average of polls, even if you took into account the one outlier there that I think had Ed Markey up by 1 point or whatever, you would still end up with a 4 or 5 point advantage for Ed Markey. And all this will, of course, determine on turnout, but also with these polls, they have a devastating effect on a challenger. So it's very, very hard for a challenger to become from behind when you have these kinds of things. Now, the poll I talked about was this Republican Super PAC poll. Actually, it hit him down by 3. I thought it was down by 1. But all these polls, his internal poll 7, the Boston Globe, this is Mr. Gomez down by 14. So all these polls, McLaughlin took the poll for this PAC, and he came up with various numbers. It was by 1. That was 2 weeks ago, at 45 to 44. And the last week showed Markey up by, we'll call it 6.5. Now this is McLaughlin's poll all over the place. My take is that there was somewhat of a surge before the people found out exactly what Mr. Gomez was about, and he lost his share. We almost want to call it market share, because of other problems that were there. The people from the Michelle Bachmann campaign and some more of the right-wing people, because he was trying to run quote-unquote some moderate, as Wrongway Brown done, but or did, I'm sorry. Anyway, this ends it for us. Good day.